Hello, my name is Dawn Ringrose. I'm an FCMC here in BC, and I'm pleased to be here tonight with CMC-BC Lower Mainland Chapter to discuss the pathway to achieving organizational effectiveness. Thank you very much to Ron Matthews for organizing this session and to the participants that are in attendance. I'm going to start off just by introducing myself a little bit and then move into the agenda that we're going to cover this evening. I'm Principal of Organizational Excellence Specialist and author of the Organizational Excellence Framework publication and the accompanying toolkit. I've been consulting to management in areas that positively contribute to organizational performance back in 1984. And over this period of time, I've worked with organizations across sectors to help them improve their performance. Several of these organizations have been recognized by National Excellence Award programs. Recently, I've been involved in two very exciting projects. One was writing a chapter on organizational excellence that was published in a global encyclopedia. And the second was volunteering to conduct the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence. And I'll speak a little bit more about that research project during this presentation. So the agenda for this evening, I'm going to first of all start talking about how organizational excellence aligns with the CMC body of knowledge. There's some really great parallels there, and I want everyone to know just how easy it is to get up and running in this field. I'd like to talk to you about how CMCs can add value to the field. We all have such great areas of specialty, whether it's in a functional area or an industry sector, and there's lots of opportunity for CMCs to really build on and add to the work that I've done to date. The global research project that I'm involved in is really going to be helpful in identifying consulting opportunities in terms of who needs help with what where. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about that. And then I'm going to finish off with how the Organizational Excellence Toolkit can be used to address these opportunities for improvement. Let's start with how the field organizational excellence, how did it come to be? Well, back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, there was research done around the world that identified the best management practices that were common to high-performing organizations. And in a number of jurisdictions, they put the definitions of these best management practices together in what they called excellence models. On the upper left-hand side of the screen, you have the Australian Business Excellence Framework. And to the right of that is the Malcolm Baldrige model. The lower left-hand side of the screen is the EFQM, or European model. And the right-hand lower side of the screen is the Canadian Framework for Excellence. And they've done work over the last 20 years that has shown that when you put these best management practices in place, that it makes a positive contribution to organizational performance. Once these best management practices are implemented, you develop a culture that is committed to excellence and you get exceptional results. It's a pretty tried and true formula. The work that I did was to pull all of this wonderful information together that we find in excellence models, all these definitions of best management practices that we know are common to high-performing organizations. And we know through the research, of course, they've been validated to work. So I took this opportunity to put everything in one place. And I also noted a huge gap in the literature, and that was how to implement these best management practices. So what I thought I'd do with the publication is merge what we know in excellence with how we implement it in management consulting. The Organizational Excellence Framework publication integrates all of this good work, these two bodies of knowledge. And there's a picture of the framework on the screen. There's 3 circles. On the inside of the circle are the principles that describe the culture that's very committed to excellence. The second ring are the key management areas within which there are best management practices in each area. And the outer ring is where we have continuous improvement methodology and all the performance measures that we're going to use to gauge our progress. And the performance measures help us gauge how we're doing in each of the key management areas and also for the organization overall. In the publication, there's also interrelationships between the principles and best management practices identified. And at the end of each chapter, there's a wonderful list of resources should you want additional information. But it does, as just a reminder, it does provide these great definitions and these implementation guidelines. So it's a wonderful resource or reference to have in your library. And I've made it downloadable at no charge on the homepage of our website. I'm really interested in sharing this information for everyone to use, take advantage of it, to benefit from. It's surprising, but only 10 to 20% of the working population is familiar with excellence models. And I thought by writing a publication and making it freely available that we could change that number. As we take a look at the CMC body of knowledge, we see that it's very aligned with excellence models. We see that there's these 6 areas in the CMC body of knowledge, and it aligns quite beautifully with the 9 areas that we have in excellence models. In addition to these 9 key management areas, of course, there's also the principles or the description of a culture that's committed to excellence. CMCs can add a lot of value to the work that I've done. In many ways, they can, number one, they can apply it to their own practice so that they become a higher performing organization, and they can share what they've done with others. They can even apply for awards. And National Excellence Awards are very prestigious awards. They're very hard to earn, and those that do sit amongst other very coveted organizations, very reputable organizations that are high performing. CMCs can also add value by contributing to the implementation guidelines. In authoring the Organizational Excellence Framework, I wanted to lay out some very basic guidelines, how you go about implementing the best management practices. For example, a best management practice is the practice of business planning or strategic planning. How do you go about creating a strategic plan or creating a business plan? They're meant to be basic, they're meant to provide a guide, but knowing that CMCs have great breadth and depth and areas of specialty, functional areas in industry sectors, there's a lot more value that they can add by taking a deeper dive. For example, if we take a look at work processes, you can work with organizations to document the way their work is done by developing policies and procedures and process maps. But you can also take a deeper dive if you're a Six Sigma specialist by helping them examine and improve their processes and realize improvement to a much greater extent than you could with the basic guidelines. There's also an opportunity to expand this work to the international network. Just imagine what we could do as CMCs throughout the world, working with organizations to improve performance. Show that we can get tangible results. What a difference that could make to those organizations that are improving, and ultimately to that local economy or trade, and eventually resident quality of life. We can work with our contacts. We can encourage those client organizations that we're serving to take advantage of an excellence model and put it in place and improve their performance. And we can do this across the business, government, and non-for-profit sectors. And we can share knowledge with other professionals by doing the training, by writing up our work in case studies. And it has broad application. As I said, I've worked with business, government, nonprofit groups, micro, small, medium, and large size organizations. It's applicable to any size and any type of organization. For example, some of the work I've done in government, I've worked with government ministries to work with an entire ministry to put this in place and get exceptional results. Most recently, I've been lucky enough to work with a nationwide excellence program in the United Arab Emirates. On the non-for-profit side, I've worked with professional associations such as the Law Society and the Certified Management Accountants. On the business side, I've worked with, and the non-profit side combined, I've worked with the tourism sector to take a look at excellence in the Canadian tourism sector. And on a provincial basis, I've worked with road building and heavy construction to take a look at where their members are at, where they're doing well, and where they need to improve. So you can just see the breadth and depth of what we can offer here in terms of working with organizations that want to improve their performance, associations that want to serve their members better, and governments that might want to take a look at their programs and take a look going forward at how they want to continue providing those government services. So lots of opportunity for CMCs to get involved and add value, from applying it to their own practice so that they can have stronger and better firms, right through to working with client organizations, and of course sharing knowledge with other professionals. The global research that I've been doing has been going on now for a couple of years. It's the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence. And we're inviting organizations from around the world to participate in the assessment. They can take either the teaser assessment on the culture of excellence in their organizations, or they can take the full assessment that includes the cultural component, plus all of the best management practices across the key management areas. We're wanting to see to what extent these organizations have a culture that is committed to excellence and have deployed the best management practices. And we want to examine the similarities and the differences by size of organization, from micro to small to medium to large, or by industry sector. There's 21 industry sectors in total, and country. There's 218 countries that we have in the world. So you can see it's a very big study, and we're already seeing some pretty interesting results. But this also applies to leaders in organizations and management in organizations that might be responding to the survey, to those that have absolutely no awareness at all about excellence models, to those that are very sophisticated and perhaps are using them in their organizations. So we want a nice random sample. This work is going to create the very first global organizational index. And we're going to be very helpful in using it in benchmarking so that organizations compare how they're doing to other organizations of the same size industry sector or within their country. And the link at the bottom of the screen provides access to that global OE index on our website. Now I'm going to show you a few of the real-time results that have been captured just in the last 24 hours. And as I show you these results, I want you to keep in mind that a score of 6 to 8 is an organization that's really doing quite well in this respect. Most of the award winners have got scores that are 6 and up across all of the key management areas. A score in the 8 to 10 region is one that indicates extremely high performance. These are leaders in their field, high-performing organizations, best-in-class organizations. Here's the real-time results on the principles so far. In this particular data set comes from the teaser assessment only, and it represents 469 respondents. And you can see by taking a look at the 9 principles down the left-hand side of the screen that organizations are doing quite well. They're rating themselves quite positively on leadership involvement and focus on the customer. But 2 of the lower-rated principles are prevention-based process management and database decision-making. And for those that don't know, prevention-based process management is taking a look at your work processes and making sure that you have a way of dealing with problems that occur so that you can prevent them from happening again. And database decision-making is making sure that the decisions that you are making in the organization are based on data. Here's a look at the principles by size of organization. And it's very interesting that micro-size organizations, which have 1 to 25 employees, are rating themselves more positively on these principles than their larger size counterparts. Here's the principles by type of organization: business, government, and nonprofit association. And we see that business is rating themselves more positively than their government or nonprofit counterparts. Here's a few high responding industry sectors. We've got education, financial and insurance, followed by human health and social work, followed by information and communication, and then manufacturing, other service, the professional, scientific, and technical field, and then finally public administration, which is government. And as we look at these ratings on the principles, we see that financial and insurance and the professional, scientific, and technical groups are out in front with an overall rating on their principles of 7.1. And I might add that on the professional, scientific, and technical activities group, that's where consulting resides, management consulting. And we've had a very good response around the world from those engaged in management consulting. Now, some of the lower ratings we see in manufacturing and most importantly in the public administration area. So what does this tell us as consultants? It tells us that government perhaps needs a little bit of help with the culture and the current commitment to excellence. There's some opportunities there. And if we take a deeper dive into taking a look at the principles by government, it's going to tell us a little bit more about which of those principles is a strength and which provides an opportunity for improvement. I took the liberty of taking a snapshot of Canada. And on these principles, we see Canada in the light blue color and other countries in the darker blue color. And as you scan down the list of these 9 principles, you see that in some cases Canada's a little ahead and sometimes it's a bit behind. So it spells a real opportunity for us. What can we do to move ahead? Our current culture of excellence in organizations it looks to be quite good, but there are some points at which we have got much lower ratings than our counterparts. Again, on the prevention-based process management and the data-based decision-making is one that's jumping out. But another one that's jumping out, if we take a look down the list is alignment. This is a principle that speaks to how aligned is everything we do in our organization with our vision and our mission. Because we know those things that are out of alignment, those work activities that we're undertaking that aren't aligned with the vision and the mission, won't contribute to our mandate and won't contribute to our strategic direction. So once again, taking a closer look at these principles in the country of Canada, by the size of organization, industry sector, and so forth, it's going to give us greater detail on the work that needs to be done. If we take a look at the full assessment, and this is organizations that have completed questions, rated themselves on the principles or culture of excellence, and also on each of the best management practices in each of these key management areas. This is another group, and we've got 153 respondents so far in this group. This is very telling as well. Number one, the first thing that jumped out to me was that organizations have rated themselves quite a bit lower on the key management areas than they did on the principles. And this is interesting because all of the practices in the key management areas are interrelated with the principles. So it does, beg the question why. And I believe that once a respondent starts rating their organization on all the best management practices in each of these key management areas, it's causing them to evaluate things that perhaps they didn't think about. And there's a fair bit of depth to each one of these areas. And thus the ratings are a little bit lower. That's one of the reasons. But 2 of the lowest rated items are planning and resource management. And these are areas where there's some pretty strong interrelationships, because planning involves, of course, business planning. And resource management is all of these resources that we need to run our organizations: assets, financial resources, technology, knowledge management, and so forth. It's everything except human resources, because the human resources component is included under employees. But interesting that these 2 areas are the lowest rated. And if we take a look at the highest rated, we see that's the customers area. That's an area where organizations are focusing effort and feel that they're doing quite well. Now let's take a closer look at the planning area and the key management area, this key management area's best practices. So it'll give us a little bit more of an idea why planning is rated where it is. Here we get a chance to take a look at the 9 practices that are part of the planning key management area. And we can see the greatest strength is using factual information to provide input to the planning process. And of course, creating a business plan is rated quite high. But some of the lower rated practices in this area is to develop contingency plan for unforeseen events, and also conducting a capability gap analysis. So this gives us an idea of why planning is rated the way it is, and within the planning area, what's going well and what's not. Here's a look at another key management area, and this is the work processes area. This is an area that, we can see that organizations are doing quite well when it comes to taking corrective action when problems occur. But surprisingly, designing and documenting their key processes so they have documentation about the way the work is done is rated a little bit lower. One of the lowest rated practices in this entire global assessment is the last practice, used external data to compare performance. This is benchmarking with other organizations. And this is something that I've learned while I've been serving on the Global Benchmarking Network, actually, is that North America is falling behind. Our organizations aren't doing a lot of benchmarking with others, whereas our counterparts in Europe and in Asia have been benchmarking with others for years. And this is very, very important, because we know that, especially in this work processes area, if we're taking a look at the way we're doing our work and we're taking a look at the way we can improve what we're doing, most of our improvement ideas will come from the people doing the work. And probably 95% of improvement will be the result of those ideas and suggestions that employees have. But there's that additional 5%, which could be a game changer, that we can learn from others. By studying and benchmarking with others, we can learn about additional ways that we can improve the way we're doing our work. And so it's really, really important that organizations look outside of themselves to others. So we think about now too about the toolkit that's been developed, and how we can use it in the work that we do. We can use it, number one, to develop professionally. There's an awful lot of professionals that have taken the holistic workshop on the organizational excellence framework just to develop professionally. That workshop provides an overview of excellence models and the research that's been done so that they really understand how it's been validated, the positive relationship that exists between implementing an excellence model and improving organizational performance. But some want to enhance an area of specialty. And this is where they have an area of specialty, and they can dive really deep into particular areas, and they want to augment the skill set, or they want to be available to do that sort of work should there be a referral opportunity. But the course also takes people through the whole self-assessment process. That this is how you do an assessment, this is how you generate an improvement plan, this is how you work with an organization to implement that improvement plan. So it gives that practical hands-on experience, gives a nice overview of the publication so that you know how to use the publication. And invariably, those of us that specialize in certain areas, as most of us do, we find that we can see where our specialty fits, where it allows us to dive deeper and add additional value for a client. But it also allows us to connect a few more dots too about the interrelationships that exist in the framework with our area of specialty, and causes us to think about things that we might not have thought about. The toolkit can also be used in the consulting process. And if we can think about the consulting process in the one that is, something near and dear to all of our hearts, working with client organizations to identify issues, analyze the issues, make recommendations, and if asked, to help implement those recommendations. But we can also think about it in terms of the business process that we find ourselves in. And that is always looking for work opportunities. And when we are able to find those work opportunities, doing the work, getting the results, and earning the right to follow on business, return and referral business. So the toolkit aligns beautifully with both the consulting process and the business process that we find ourselves in when we're management consultants. The toolkit can also be applied to the client organization. And the client organization, it's all about training people about these best management practices. It's doing a self-assessment against them so that you can identify your strengths and your gaps and then work to improve or address those gaps. The toolkit can also be used for those consultants that want to work independently in their own firms, small, medium, or large. And it can also be used if you want to work collaboratively. And if you want to work collaboratively with us at Organizational Excellence Specialists, we've got a team that we join together on some sorts of projects, and on other things we're working independently. And so it really gives you a lot of flexibility. It's kind of like working in your own small firm, but at times when the need arises, we can work together as a larger firm. And last but not least, the toolkit can be used to distinguish the CMC brand. This was part of the reason that I developed the publication and the toolkit in the first place. In the last 30 years being part of the CMC organization, I've thought a lot about that. I've thought all about our CMC designation, the awareness of it in the marketplace, what we can do to distinguish ourselves. And I thought that this publication and this toolkit would be one way we could distinguish ourselves. I'm sure that members have other ideas as well. But I thought if there's some product that we can all use, doesn't matter what functional area or industry sector specialization we have, if there's some product that we can all use, and that product helps us to create more awareness about excellence models, to get organizations using it, to get results, it leaves a wonderful reputation for us at the end of the day, doesn't it? Most businesses that have been involved with excellence models, they use them for competitiveness. They want to be stronger, more resilient organizations, and they want to be performing well in the marketplace. Associations that use excellence models want to serve their members better. They want to have a good handle on their member requirements, and they want to deliver to those requirements. If you take a look at the Global Organizational Excellence Index, well, that's going to tell associations how they can better serve their members too when they take a look at the industry sector findings about what's going well and what might need to improve. It gives them great ideas about programs that they can be providing to their members. Governments can use excellence models to, of course, deliver their programs as well to industry. And governments like the United Arab Emirates that want to become a top-performing government are using excellence model throughout the entire government across ministries so that they can be high performing and continually improving. And if you think about it, if business and associations and governments within a country are all working with an excellence model, and they're capitalizing on that formula that exists, you implement the best management practices, you get a culture committed to excellence, and you get exceptional results, what happens? That country can improve the performance of organizations, and that results in a stronger economy, more trade, and trickles right through to better resident quality of life. It's very powerful. And as CMCs, we could be part of making that happen. One reason why I think this is particularly valuable to CMCs is that we use a strategic approach when dealing with organizations. We get to know our clients, we get to know their organizations, their vision, their mission, what's going well, what's not, and we help them address their issues. There's no better qualified professional, I don't think, to do this work than those that think strategically, because they can help an organization do what it does today and move towards its desired future. And they can work with them in a modular sense or a holistic sense to make sure this work of implementing the best management practices dovetails beautifully with their strategic direction. Towards that end, the consulting toolkit includes all the things that we need. We've got the publication that provides a foundation for the entire toolkit. It's got those definitions of best management practices. It's got the basic implementation guidelines for them, other resources. It's got the interrelationships highlighted. Then to pique interest, we have short presentations for leadership when they're considering whether or not they want to do this sort of work. And we've got scenario games that help reinforce where they are today and where they might be tomorrow. There's quick or robust diagnostic tools, the automated assessment and reporting tools that we have. The teaser assessment helps gauge the culture and how committed it is to excellence. And the full assessment gauges the culture and all of the best management practices across the key management areas. The teaser only has 9 principles, but the full assessment tool has about 100 practices. And so you want to believe it covers off most of what we do as management consultants. Of course, micro-sized organizations don't have 100 best practices that we are evaluating. If you've only got 1 to 25 employees, the assessment tool has about half the practices. There's about 50 practices there that are involved in a full assessment of a micro-sized organization. And when it comes to providing implementation assistance, we can work with organizations in a holistic sense. And so that's assessing the organization against the entire framework, taking a look at their strengths, what needs to improve, and working with them towards that end over a number of years. A lot of these assignments, you'll find yourself inside and out of the organization over about a 3-year period, helping them to put it all in place. But there's also the modular approach, and this is where an organization has an issue or two, they need help with those issues, and you're going to work with them in a modular sense, let's say in a particular key management area or two, and help them address those burning issues that are keeping them up at night. Most of the work that we do in this area is actually in a modular sense. That's where a lot of organizations want to start, and you have to be flexible. You're going to help them with those burning issues. You can show them what else can be done. And then you'd be able to draw on this toolkit because there's a holistic workshops for micro size and larger size organizations. There's the modular workshops for each of the key management areas. And you can put them, they're customizable. You can put them together. You can offer them separately. It's really up to you. It's really up to what the organization needs and how you decide to approach it with leadership. But they can be customized also in terms of the examples that you bring forward, the best-in-class organizations you decide to highlight. And so that workshop is customized for the organization. It's more meaningful for them, speaking their language. There's also a Train the Trainer program should organizations want to train their own internal trainers and use the workshops in-house. And there's the Train the Trainer program for professionals, such as those of us in management consulting, so that we can go out and train not only client organizations, but we can also train other professionals or in other places at home and around the world. And there's a Global Organizational Excellence Index, of course, that we can use for benchmarking. And more organizations are interested in benchmarking. How do I benchmark? Who do I benchmark with? And so forth. So this is something that is going to be very, very valuable to us, especially here in North America, as I think I'm starting to notice that more and more organizations are speaking about benchmarking and looking for those sorts of services. So this will be very good timing for us. Now, one thing I'd like to say about the automated assessment and reporting tool is this tool saves about 1 to 2 days of time. That's how long we used to take when we used to do it more manually. When we had done the diagnostic and we have got the results to share with your organization, the ratings that they've shared, the open-ended comments that they've shared, and we'd prepare an improvement plan that was the action plans to address all the low-rated items. And now that used to take at least 1 to 2 days to prepare, depending on organization size, but now it's done in about a minute. And the automated tool is really flexible. I mean, you can get a leader to fill it out. It's their perceptions of what's deployed in the organization or what characterizes the organization. But you can also get all the employees in the organization to fill it out, and it aggregates all of the results. The data is there too if you want to take a look at the difference in perceptions between leadership, management, and staff. And of course, this can be applied to an association that might want to do this sort of work with their members. Could be used with the government that wants to take a look at what's going on across government, federal government. So there's all sorts of different applications, and we're using this automated assessment and reporting tool to do the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence. And this is a huge study. I mean, we are talking 9,000 respondents for a statistically significant sample size. So a lot of benefits to doing this sort of work, a lot of opportunity for CMC members. I think I've mentioned a couple times that we've got this integrated excellence model. It's unique in that it has implementation guidelines for the first time ever. And there's a process that's validated to work. I've taken what I've learned over the last 25 years doing this work, and I put everything that has worked really well in one place so that my consulting colleagues can take advantage of it and benefit by it too. The toolkit serves the generalist and the specialist. It's great to be armed with some general tools that we can all use, and it's wonderful if we're a specialist that can take a deeper dive in a particular area to further augment the work that we're doing. Good for all of us to take a look at the interrelationships that exist in this framework and up our game. Just makes us more knowledgeable about the way organizations work. It's a very global, professional, and cost-effective set of programs. I've intentionally priced everything low. It's either free or low. And I did this intentionally because I wanted it to be available to professionals in developed and developing countries. I didn't want price to be a barrier. I wanted to make sure that we could put this in people's hands, and the publication is there as a great reference that can be used by all the do-it-yourselfers, if that's the case. But better yet, it's there to be used by properly qualified professionals that are well-trained, that can do this work and help other organizations be more successful. The assessment and improvement planning process leads to a lot of follow-on assignments and referrals. I find in doing this work with organizations, they're pretty pleased with exceptional results. And they're very pleased to have you back to work with them on other things, or they're pleased to refer you to others. The measurement that we do that shows where an organization was before we entered the organization and where they are after we leave the organization provides validation to the marketplace about the work we do and the results that we get. It speaks very loudly. There's a number of strategic alliances that we have that add value to client engagements. Our work with the Global Benchmarking Network and the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee are just two examples of organizations that provide data and information that's current and leading edge and is at our fingertips and helps us add value to any client engagement. And last but not least, this is a means to distinguish and strengthen the value of our consulting services to clients. I find that no matter what sort of assignment I'm working on, this adds value. I might be working in the organizational excellence area and transferring this knowledge and sharing this sort of information with clients, but I might be doing something else too. I might have been part of writing a business plan or part of a strategic plan for an organization or doing a feasibility study. And there's always an opportunity to transfer knowledge to others about an excellence model, and this is how this is going to help them in their existing organization, in a new organization that might be on the drawing board. Here's just a snapshot of organizational excellence specialists over the last 6 years. I wrote the publication back in 2010, and I've developed the toolkit in 2011, 2012. And in a really short space of time, I've been training professionals in over 20 countries, and the tools are being used by professionals in over 50 countries. I've been invited to represent Canada on global committees and asked to lead the first global assessment on the current state of organizational excellence that was launched by the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee. And just to give you an idea, a view to the future, if we take a look at ISO, which I think most everyone is familiar with, International Standards Organization, I'm going to be chairing a new ISO committee that's going to be working on guidelines to implement an excellence model and related ISO standards. The ISO 9001 standard is a quality standard, but it has a fraction of the best practices in it compared to an excellence model. An excellence model is far more robust. And each and every time they update the ISO 9001 standard. It just includes more practices from an excellence model. And so they'll be doing that for a long time before they ever catch up to what's in an excellence model. So if you learn about an excellence model, you're going to be well ahead of the game for quite some time. But there's other ISO standards that are very related to an excellence model. And so that's the environmental standard, the health and safety standard, social responsibility standard are just some examples. But this is where it makes sense to put it all together. Once again, an excellence model provides a nice big umbrella under which a lot of these related ISO standards will fit. In fact, there's a best management practice that references standards and how it's important that we're always keeping an eye on those standards that we have to conform with. So I'd like to thank you very much for being part of this presentation tonight, and I would be pleased to answer any questions that you have. And I've captured a few of those questions from the audience here on the slide, and I'll do my best at trying to answer them. First question was, how can a framework be applied? If we take a look through the client lens, how does this start? What is it that usually brings the consultant to the organization? Well, generally, a client has an issue to address. So it's a modular sort of approach. They've got a problem with a certain best management practice. Let's say they don't have a strategic plan, or they've never documented their work processes. This is the sort of thing that is an issue that's keeping them up at night, something that they need to address. 90% of the time, the entry into the organization is based on a best management practice or a problem in a key management area. And that's a typical consulting assignment. You're in there to help them address that issue. Now, about 10% of the time, it's a holistic approach. You've got a leader that wants to pursue excellence. They want to leave a great legacy. They want to show their stakeholders that they're getting results. And those stakeholders might be a board, might be shareholders, what have you. So that's generally the way it goes. And the typical process that we go through when we do this sort of work is we start with a presentation to leadership to determine interest, to answer any questions that they have, and ensure that they're comfortable with the work that's going to be done. And then we move forward to doing an assessment of the organization. And we involve everyone, ideally, in the assessment, so we get the perspectives of leadership, management, and staff. Sometimes organizations just want to include leadership in that, and that's fine too. We can do it either way. It's just that you get a much better assessment if you get input from everybody, because staff is always bringing things to the attention of leadership that they didn't know and will benefit them. And so you get a much more robust, valuable assessment if you can involve everyone. Then the improvement plan is prepared. The one that comes automatically off our system reports the methodology that was used, provides the ratings, the open-ended comments that are coded so that no one's name is revealed. And then it has all of the action plans that are going to help you address the low-rated practices. I found it's very, very important to delegate the work that needs to be done on these action plans throughout the organization, so employees find themselves working on the action plans individually or on a committee. There's a place on each and every action plan where we designate who's going to be working on it, the timing, how progress is going to be measured, and whether there's any out-of-pocket costs. And the action plan also has the practice that needs to be addressed and the implementation guidelines, so the stepwise methodology they're going to use to put this in place. Now they're free to tweak that methodology if they want, or customize it a little bit for their organization. It's an editable Word report that allows them to do that. And sometimes we're asked to just provide the report that comes off the system, but other times, more often than not, actually, we're asked to provide our touch, and that includes analysis, recommendations, best-in-class examples, so that they've got an augmented report that helps them interpret the results and have a better view of where they are now and where they're going to be in the future. The process follows by the organization and its employees putting in place these best management practices, starting to get results, continually improving, and eventually they might aspire to apply for a National Excellence Award. In the cases where organizations want to do that, we'll explain the process to them, guide them through it, and we'll read their award application and provide feedback on it, but we won't write the application for them because it doesn't end up serving them very well. It's their excellence journey, it's their excellence award potentially, and it's all part of the process of earning it. Now the second question is, should you start at the department or corporate level? Well, generally, the excellence journey starts at the corporate level. You've got a leader who wants to do this. They want to leave a legacy. They want to get results for their stakeholders. They've got a burning desire to be the best that they can be, while they're at the helm of that organization. Occasionally, it starts at a department level. This takes a little bit longer for the organization because you're just working, let's say, with a branch within government. But once that branch starts getting results, the rest of the organization is looking and wondering why and becoming more and more interested in getting involved. And so that effort might expand to include the entire ministry. And the same applies if you're working with a business, a larger organization. And it takes many forms. It takes many forms of whether you're working just with the leadership team throughout and they're transferring knowledge to the employees, or you're working with everybody in the organization in the work that's being done. It's very flexible, and that's something that we as management consultants are pretty good at, is making sure that we're flexible in terms of meeting the client's requirements. The third question is, do you establish a baseline at the very beginning? And yes, we certainly do. That baseline about current state, it captures where is the organization at this point in time. Generally, we start, with some training that provides an overview of excellence models and the research so they really understand the why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to go on this excellence journey? And we're sharing great examples of organizations that have gone before them and have gotten exceptional results. And it's always best if it's organizations that are a lot like them in terms of industry sector and size and country. But we can draw on examples from all around the world so that we can find good examples for them that get their attention. The assessment then engages leadership or all the employees in evaluating their culture and the extent to which they've deployed these best management practices. And all the ratings and open-ended comments are there to give us a very good understanding of where the organization sits. And because we've got the perspectives of leadership, management, and staff usually, it's a pretty good rating of where the organization is across all these best management practices and the principles. And the open-ended comments really help us to better understand the ratings and why they are the way they are. The automated report or improvement plan, of course, as I said, can be augmented, and the action plans are all delegated so that work gets done faster. Everybody's involved and engaged. It takes a big load off the shoulders of leadership. Everybody's involved in celebrating results, and it creates a lot of pride in the organization and camaraderie. So from that baseline, you're there as a temporary member of the management team to transfer knowledge and to guide, to assist. It takes many forms. You can be a trainer one day, you can be a coach another day, you can be a consultant doing projects on it the day after that. There's always a lot of opportunity to assist them with the implementation of the best management practices. And there's those occasions where they want you to take a deeper dive as well. So it's really just depends on the extent to which they want you involved. And we know as consultants that organizations ask us to do assignments because they don't have the talent within to do the work, or they don't have the time to do the work, or they need that outside independent and objective professional. And so that's the same in this case, is there's lots of work for consultants to do to help guide an organization and to bring forward that strategic approach so that you can align everything that needs to be done with their strategic direction. Their current state too is it's very interesting the way it starts too, because at the very, very beginning, they don't understand their organization as a system of all these interrelated, interconnected parts that has to be working really well together in order to deliver their mission and realize their vision. But they come to really appreciate how that organization can be a very finely tuned engine that gets that organization to move from A to B. Now, another question about resources on the website. There's several. On the home page, you can download the publication at no charge. You can use the teaser assessment tool at no charge. And that teaser assessment tool delivers the report directly to the inbox of the email that is specified on the form. The full assessment is there as well, and there's a sample of the full assessment report, so you can take a look at it. It's offered at a small fee. On the services page, we have our description of the product line. On the activities page, we describe the work that we're doing at home and abroad. And we also have a description on that page of the sort of workshops that we offer in person, the online interactive, and the new e-learning self-paced workshop. The Global OE Index tab describes the study that was launched by the Organizational Excellence Technical Committee and has been supported by ISO, the Global Benchmarking Network, and International Academy of Quality. And on the About Us page, you can see our core team, but you can also see some of the researchers involved in the study. There's about 25 researchers on the page, but behind them, there's another 250 researchers around the world that are helping on this study. there's an opportunity to take a look at the real-time results of the study. So you can go in and you can take a look at the dashboards that give you a sample of some of the dashboards that we've got that are showing the real-time data. On our partners page, we've got the various organizations that we work closely with. ASQ is very important. Depth and breadth of the resources there is just incredible, and really adds a lot of value to our work. The Global Benchmarking Network allows us to do benchmarking projects throughout the world and find benchmarking partners for clients. There's some incredible resources available to us there with that help with benchmarking, even in each best practice. We're a registered education provider for the Project Management Institute, involved, of course, with CMC, doing workshops and presentations at the national level and the provincial level, speaking at conferences and that sort of thing. QLBS is our partner that provides the technological platform. And I'm very involved with Mackay CEO forums, so working as a speaker to address their members, which are the largest businesses in Canada, very successful businesses in Canada. On the About Us page, we have those of us on the entire team, and so there's really wonderfully qualified professionals that bring a lot of talent to the table, and each one of them has their own area of specialty, and whether it's a functional area or an industry sector. So together we provide a pretty well-rounded team. One of the team members, Dan Corbett, he used to be the CEO of Excellence Canada, and he's got a wonderful track record in terms of taking some pretty major organizations in Canada on the excellence journey, one being a very large educational institution, another being a large manufacturing business. And the fifth question, types of benchmarking opportunities. One of our participants had said that you could take a look at a practice such as the cost to process an invoice, and sometimes it's hard to find some data that fits exactly with your process. And yes, benchmarking can take many forms. At bpir.com, there's a resource that really helps with, very finite practices like this. And you might find in that database another organization in the world that has done work in this particular area, and you can learn from that work. Or at the Global Benchmarking Network, we can set up a benchmarking project, and you can be working with other partners to take a look at this particular practice. We can also take a look at other organizations just like the client organization and take a look at the way they're doing their work. And there's always an awful lot to learn by studying a comparable organization. The Global Organizational Index will be yet another way that we can take a look at the principles that characterize culture, all the best management practices that are part of the excellence model. And we can see how an organization measures up, in terms of its comparables by size, industry sector, and country. So that will be useful as well. Just a couple of examples of some benchmarking exercises that are taking place right now. In the United Arab Emirates, the government there is benchmarking with all of its ministries against leading governments around the world. And in some cases, they're taking a look at best management practices that are used in the private sector too, or in business, and they're learning from the best around the world so that they can take that knowledge, apply it to what they're doing, and accelerate their excellence journey. And they've been getting great results across their ministries and really fast-tracking their excellence journey as a result of doing their benchmarking, but they've also been bringing in waves of experts, including some of our team members that work with them, work with their ministries to do assessments and write feedback reports so that they can use that information as well on their excellence journey. Another example I'd like to share is from Singapore. Singapore is perhaps the highest performing government in the world. They've been on their excellence journey. They've got very high performing ministries, won numerous awards. If you take a look at lists around the world, and they've got countries in order, you'll find, on almost any variable, you'll find Singapore near the top. And their award applications really tell the story of what they did and how they got there. It's been a multi-year journey, but it's been an impressive one. It's an extremely high-performing government with exceptional results that continues to improve. And now the great example that they've set is trickling down through the business sector as well. It's a society that just runs like clockwork. For those of you that haven't been, it's pretty impressive. And Singapore is great. It's one of the best management practices, of course, in any excellence model is to share what you have learned with others. And they're always quick to do that. They're always quick to speak at conferences and share what they've done. And they've got some very interesting stories. So I'd like to conclude this session now that we've provided an answer to some of these questions that came through on the chat line. I'd just like to finish by saying thank you very much for the opportunity to present. I really appreciate it. I love what the CMC-BC Lower Mainland Chapter has been doing in terms of these events. It's professional development for members. I always think that some of our best resources are just within our own membership. And I want to invite you, if you're particularly interested in this topic and you want to get involved, feel free to contact me. As I said earlier, I really got started on the publication and this toolkit as a way to give back to my CMC colleagues, a way to give back to my profession at this stage of my career. And I think it's really important to share what we've learned with others in the hopes that it provides benefit for them too. So I welcome you to contact me so that we can chat about some opportunities that might exist for you and how you can get involved if this has piqued your interest. Thanks very much, and bye for now.